So, Cliff, I want to talk about some of the churn that we may see in 2018, now that we are in 2018, and I should say Happy New Year to you.
And
but
you.
we thank you. And we're going to see, obviously, there's going to be a lot of focus as we get closer, maybe just even months away. We're going to start to see primary races heat up. And then over the summer, we will see these campaigns, and there's going to be a lot of intensity because I think Democrats feel that winning the House is essential to slowing the agenda of the Trump Republican Party. And there's also going to be even that much more intensity about winning the Senate because, A, it has more plausibility now than we would have predicted this time last year by
Republicans
far.
Keep retiring.
We've got Republicans retiring, and I think people are aware that that Mitch McConnell has basically stripped the brakes from the judicial appointment process, and so there's a huge urgency about that. But before we get to those, what we know now in terms of the implications of the 2018 race. We have to mention, I mean, earlier, Digby and I talked about the fight between Steve Bannon and Donald Trump that broke out this week, where Bannon apparently spoke to Michael Wolff in Michael Wolff's forthcoming book about how Manafort and Trump Jr. and Kushner were, what they did was treasonous, and that they're up to their eyeballs in money laundering, and they got some real...
Yeah, the meeting, I believe, right? Is that what you're referring to, the meeting in the Trump Tower? Yep.
That's right. And he said that he expected Donald Trump Jr. to be cracked open like an egg on national TV at one point. But apparently the other sort of revelation that we know now, and we're getting dribs and drabs coming out about the book, is something that I have to say I suggested during the race, that Donald Trump never wanted to be president. He just wanted to be super famous, and this was a stunt, almost like, comedians would run. Yeah,
and, I think you and I, in our various places where we have these discussions, the Majority Report here, we discussed it a number of times. I mean, people don't suddenly just change. This guy has kind of an opportunity for public relations would drop a hint that he was running for president. He'd done it a good 3-4 times in the past. And there was no reason I doubted and never believed he'd really run for president in 2016. And when he did, I was quite sure he was doing it just as a stunt to get publicity. And he was. It's really sort of a statement about how bad the Republican field was, how weak our media is in terms of giving people an idea of who this guy really was. We know about some of the Russia stuff. Hillary didn't run the best campaign. We go on and on and on. But they even a couple weeks out had absolutely no expectation of winning. They thought they were excited because they thought they might keep it within 6 points. And, they all, it just reminds you why all these people do what they do. They all saw a benefit in it. Trump was already talking to the late Roger Ailes about Trump TV. Those rumors were true. And looking in a way, he was like, I'll be the most famous man in the world. He's quoted as saying in this book. And looked at it as an opportunity to do all sorts of things. Kellyanne Conway was looking at it as an opportunity to get back on cable TV because she had sort of, for a while, lost her luster and had not been, because she tends to, lie about things a lot on TV, and saw it as an opportunity to break through in that front again. There are people around him who saw it as a possibility to sort of reinvigorate dying Republican careers and consulting and all sorts of stuff. Everybody's looking for what they could get out of the whole thing, but they had no expectation he would win. And if American, if so many things didn't sort of come together, and we didn't have this sort of 18th century machinery and allow somebody to lose by 3 million votes and win, it would have been right. But
right.
Sadly for all of us, I guess them included, they did win, and were uniquely unprepared at what the hell to do in that circumstance, and we've all been paying the price.
Indeed, and certainly the Republicans have capitalized on having this guy in office. It was a slow start, but they were able to ram through what I think is going to be ultimately a fairly disastrous tax scam, and really the real lasting damage. And Digby and I spoke about this earlier in the program. In addition to the sort of the slow degradation of the administrative state, in addition to the assault on the environment and workers' safety and consumer rights and securing our financial system, all of these regulations could theoretically return in one form or another. But it is the placing of judges, which is, again, can't overstate. Donald Trump has put a record number of federal judges on the bench in his first year. I imagine the second year is going to be just as fast, if not faster, because they're starting on day one. Mitch McConnell has basically realized, I think, come to the conclusion that this is the best that he's going to get out of this. And so they're beginning to assault more rules in the Senate to speed up these confirmation processes. But that takes us to the Senate. And let's just talk about the slightly from...
Thing?
Please.
I do think you're not factoring in that Donald Trump did stop planes from crashing this year.
That's true.
Even if you work with all the damage you did, if you put that in there, maybe we benefit. No, okay. I'm having fun. Everything you're saying there is dangerously true, and I would say the number of judges, they've thrown all traditions overboard, which we knew they would, and Democrats should have done long ago, knowing who they were dealing with, but Democrats don't do that kind of stuff. And then there's the whole the worst abrogation of tradition, which is not allowing President Obama to put Merrick Garland on the court, and Gorsuch has been a disaster, who seems to actually make Scalia look like a liberal, and he basically has the right-wing philosophy, of a Scalia, further to the right than that, but and the kind of willingness to engage in politics of the Clarence Thomas family, and so that's a word. So in a way, for those of us who care about these institutions, it's not even just the right-wing decisions that have no basis in law or tradition or anything. They're degrading our court system, because having a nonpartisan judiciary is sort of a key hallmark of a democracy, and they're undoing that.
Exactly,
bad,
and that that is a function of control of the Senate, and there were two developments this week that implicate the Senate, not necessarily the control over it, but perhaps because, I would say three developments. One is that Doug Jones was sworn in, and that means that the Democrats only need to pick up two to control the Senate. It's still very much an uphill climb because they have a lot more incumbents who are running. They're also going to have
prognosticators of the sort of objective both sides, certainly not, leaning left sort, your Cook type reports or whatever, are now putting it at a 50-50 chance, which is actually incredible to me. Now maybe that will change.
It is really incredible. And when we come back, let's talk about one seat that is going to be open that we did not necessarily anticipate would be, because Al Franken officially resigned from his Senate seat, and someone announced that they may run. We got to take a break. We'll be back with more. I'm talking to the great Cliff Schecter. This is Ring of Fire Radio. I'm Sam Seder.